thank you for coming on. It's really great to kind of hopefully get your insight into kind of your journey in junior golf, really. And obviously, you're still very much a part of that, actively involved in doing group coaching for juniors, and all the way through to, as you say, your son trying to qualify for the Open tomorrow, as you've been through his great journey within golf. But what has your kind of journey in junior golf looked like from when you started to kind of the present day?
I no word of a lie. I found out very early on in my career that you could make money from it, and that it was a very, very viable option. So that was my initial motivator, because I dipped my toe into the water for a few years, and I hadn't really figured out that it was what I wanted to do. But after I went to the States and did an exchange program and taught golf at a summer camp in Philadelphia, I realized that, this is actually pretty cool. And I like the program. I like what they put together. Kind of sits with me a little bit. And then I came back to the UK and luckily landed a job and kind of fell into a position whereby I was kind of free to do what I wanted. And it was only when a mother came to me and she said that her son had 3 friends that wanted to come and play. Could I teach them all at the same time? Did I realize that, there's definitely something in this. So we're talking 1996, 97 here. And golf at school wasn't really thought of or heard of. The Golf Foundation kind of existed. PGA didn't do anything for kids, but I just figured it out as I went along. And I mean, the technical side of my coaching at that point was pretty bad, very bad. Yeah, pretty horrific, actually. But what was really successful was the environment that I created, the coaching side of things, the nurturing, the inspiration that I tried to impose upon the children that came. And very quickly, we had a group session during the week or the weekend, and then we had a competition every weekend. So, it was the structure that was the real strength, and actually getting the kids onto the golf course, irrespective of their ability, because I still have this belief that there is no such thing as being ready to go out and play. You can go and play in your first lesson or your first time. I did when I was 14. My first ever interaction with golf was literally playing a hole. It might have been from the wrong tee to the wrong green, mind you, but that's another story. So, it's. I still don't feel like golf courses really offer up the course for kids to play. I think it's still very closed, and yes, there are financial elements around that, but there are still so many off-peak times. If you look at a golf course's utilization, I tell you what, they'll be lucky if they're at 60%. So 40% of the golf course is not being used throughout the course of a week. So, just pan it out with kids and opportunities for them to play, realign your operation to facilitate that. So yeah, that was the strength of it back in the early days, just letting the kids go out and play. And that proved its own motivator for the kids to keep coming back week on week. And that meant that the junior program grew. And the facility I was at was in Wandsworth in central London. And we had a 13-bay driving range. And I just did kids and my colleague just did adults. And between us, we had 750 students per week.
Wow.
Figure that out. It was bonkers. So he did groups of 6 adults. I did groups of 12 kids. And I had 400 kids. He had 350 adults. And it was just bonkers. You could barely hit golf balls as a punter in the peak times, like after work or mornings on weekends. So it was a fascinating time. Learned so much. Our driving range was also only 45 yards long, completely enclosed by netting. It was the length of a crown green bowling green, and we'd put RSJs up at an angle and put netting, totally enclosed by netting. So, look, the feedback you were getting was minimal, and it was just whacking balls, trying to hit targets that were put in the back net. And we had to make up games for the kids to play during their sessions, but their motivation to come was the fact they were playing every weekend. So it was a real bedrock for the future, really, for me. and still based around these kids playing.
That's just what you said there about you wouldn't, a lot of people maybe listening to this wouldn't think that having 13 or 12, 13 bays, like you said, but having a 45-yard area to hit into, people think, how on earth am I going to teach juniors that week on week? But it just proves to you it's not necessarily the environment you're in, it's the environment you create, isn't it? That
Oh
bring
yeah, for
kids
sure. I
coming
mean,
back.
yeah, we had a little putting green and we had a little practice hole. And we played games wherever we went. And it was, the competition has been slated over the years, so many bad reasons, but the heart and soul of learning is competition, right? Without being competitive, there's no motivation to get better. And a competition doesn't mean there's one winner. If you position it correctly, competition can be against yourself. It can be part of a team. Yes, it can be against 11 other people. But at the end of the day, once you relay the concept correctly, then that competition can be inspiring. It can be motivating, and it can really drive a young person's enthusiasm and love for the sport that will take them through to play for a lifetime. You can't get good at this game unless you love it, right? So the competition aspect of it, which develops this thirst for improvement, for wanting to get better, is probably what I would classify as the secret sauce. If you're not learning, you're not getting better, you'll quit. That's the bottom line. But when you feel like you're learning, when you feel like you're a part of that or in control of what you learn and when you learn and how you learn, then you'll be empowered. You'll feel that deep kind of soulful love for the sport that keeps you coming back. And that's what we created in the early days. And sure, I messed with the model, experimenting different things. And, I've always reverted back to that. And between the years of 2009 to 2013 at Oak Park, which is a pretty cool time for me, we had 250 kids playing a competition every weekend. The numbers were staggering. The numbers were staggering because we had two courses, right? So we had a 9-hole and an 18-hole, and it kind of grew without any control. So there are faults within that model, but we had 100 or so kids playing on the 18-hole course, and they'd have tee times in the morning and tee times in the afternoon. They'd have the ability to play their competition round either any time from a Friday through to a Monday. But the 9-hole kids as well, they would play either from the forward tees or the red tees or the yellow tees, and they'd have access to tee times in the morning or in the afternoon, Saturday or Sunday, or indeed Friday or Monday as well. But they just were fully encouraged to play over the course of the weekend, and it was just like it was a drug. It was crazy. The buzz around the place was just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. So yeah, it's good. And even from that crop of kids, we've had 9 kids are now playing professionally or at a very high elite amateur level, at which point they'll turn pro in the next year or two, I would guess. And 9 kids from that stable is a phenomenal number. And that's because they played so many competitions and it was that kind of environment for them growing up.
Yeah, perfect mixture of them for getting better and growing in that way. Just going back to the numbers side of things, how did you go about growing those numbers? Was that a case of you started building a bit of traction because people knew you guys were doing a good job, or was it a lot of it? Like I speak to a lot of people and they're like, I'm struggling to grow my numbers and I can't get my head around it because they're obviously not doing anything proactive to maybe go out and look for numbers, if that makes sense. What did you do in those early days to kind of build it up?
Well, I'm gonna put myself considerably older than you are, and therefore, you know, I remember the good old days when the school sports partnership existed, and we had help getting into every single school in our area, and that was really really strong. And to the point where I put on a special event. I remember back in 2011, I think it was, we did this thing called the G Factor, where the goal was to get every single school in Northeast Hampshire to be playing golf at the same time of day. And we we did a pretty good job. We ended up with about, it's always up for interpretation, but between 16 and 17,000 children played golf on one afternoon on that particular day, which was just mental. And that's because we had so much support from the school sports partnership, which is obviously now defunct, government funding, etc. But we were obviously paid to go into schools. We also charged parents for a school's program, and we had stepping stones for these kids. And it started out as a 10-week program, then 6 weeks, and then it turned into a 5-week program, which slotted in nicely into a half of the term. And it just snowballed from that, on top of the word of mouth concept and parents talking about how good it was and the environment and stuff like that. It all just was a perfect storm, really. So I don't think just one thing works independently. I think it's got to be a combination of factors. And where I'm currently plying my trade at the Heart here, it hasn't worked just going to schools. And one of the things that we severely lacked when I went into the Heartsmere is that we literally started the Heartsmere as a brand new club. So although the course has been there for many, many years, this was a completely new concept, new driving range, under new management, no members, nothing. We started from zero. And that was really difficult. I've never done that before. And with no platform from which to build, with no kind of golf IQ for parents or people that played, it was really difficult to get the kids involved. And so apart from also starting to work there at the wrong time of year, which was June, that's the wrong time of year to get anything going. We ended up, just really focusing on one-to-one coaching. And that was probably the wrong thing to do looking back at it, because it just meant that our diaries got so full that we couldn't dedicate the time it needed to go into schools, as an example. But the flip side of that was that when we did get into schools, it didn't really create the traction that we were looking for. So we felt that we delivered great taster sessions at school during PE. We felt like we had great after school club program, but again, after school club programs clash with, 20 other sports that the kids play or activities. So you're immediately depleting your numbers, and even to the point where I've got data. I did a 3-year study in Atlanta in America between 2013 and 2016, and the numbers we got from that were that 9% of the kids that we delivered a taster session to signed up for what we call a stage 1 program, which was a 5-week introduction to the sport at school. So the first 4 weeks at school, week 5 at the golf course. And so 9% just created just an unbelievable number of kids coming through the program. But here in South Hearts, just not even close to 9%. It was really, really difficult to make the program work and to get any traction from that. The irony being that 2 years later, we've just suddenly hit or struck gold with the junior program. And it's interesting because we have been working very closely with Love.Golf, which is a women's golf initiative backed by Syngenta and kind of spearheaded by a good friend of mine, Alistair Spink. He's amazing at what he's done to build this women's only kind of opportunity and experience. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize, but we were doing these 3-hour experiences every month for women, and we were getting between 15 and 25 women attending every single month, and it was really, really positive. And earlier this year, we kick-started that program again in the season, and our first event back in May, we had 45 women. Then June, we had close to 30, and then we had 24 day before yesterday. So it's a really strong program. And I looked at it and go, why are we not doing the same thing for kids? This doesn't make any sense. Why would I not do this? And so in May, we started our first junior open day, and I put dates in there for May, June, July, August, and September. We sold out. 30 kids per event, we'd sold out. So we've got over 150 kids signed up for these open days. And now the sign up for the introductory program, which is a 5 or a 6 week introduction, is probably close to about 24-25% of those taking part in the taster session. So just been a massive turnaround, and now the growth chart is on a fabulous trend upwards. And we've sold out of summer camps, and we'll sell out of our term time program once we kick off again in September. So I'm really excited by what that opportunity is bringing for us. And it's just proof that just because you've done something one way, you shouldn't then think it's going to work when you do it again. You've got to do your homework. You've got to keep your eyes open and not be blinkered. And that's probably my mistake. And I certainly won't make that mistake again. But I'm quite hard on myself. And I say to myself, well, I should have known better. But it's difficult when you have the cards dealt a certain way. It often takes time for you to realize that that's not the right strategy. But any kind of market research or homework prior to implementing the strategy probably wouldn't have done any good anyway, because I probably would have started doing the same thing that I tried to do. Notwithstanding the fact that it's still very difficult to get into a school to go and coach a school, because I don't know, it's tough. You're banging your head against a brick wall trying to present these opportunities for schools, and they don't want to take it. But the open day concept is something that really has worked for us in the first 2 months that we've done it. And I'm looking forward to the July date in 2 weeks. And again, we're sold out for that. So we'll see what happens. So it's fantastic. It's really, really positive. So yeah, lots to learn from that.
Again, hopefully for people that will listen to this, you're right in what you say. You kind of have you have a successful way of doing things, and you think, right, I'll roll that out again, and then you kind of get, it doesn't quite work the way you want it to. But it's about, I guess for you, obviously you've got a reputation of being a brilliant coach anyway, but it's keeping consistent with it, isn't it? And not,
well, forget the reputation. The reputation was nothing.
means nothing.
I had no foothold in that market because I'd not taught in Hertfordshire before, so nobody knew who I was. Going into a brand new business under new management, nobody knew what it was. Literally starting from ground zero. So that's a tough gig, when your audience are totally non-golf IQ. It's a really tough thing to get off the ground. And I think the answer to the problem is you've got to implement multiple angles of attack at this. I should have done the open days from the very beginning, but I should have done the school program. I should have done all day school experiences. I should have done assemblies. I should have just done talks, whatever. But I should have done it all. And that's the thing, right? It's not one solution. It's multiple solutions to tackle the big problem. And once they're in, then they start to understand who I am and what my motivations are and who my team is and the environment and the facilities that we have. But yeah, it's a tough gig if you're just one dimensional. So you've got to look at it from multiple strands.
What would you say to a coach now then that does a little bit of junior coaching but doesn't really know how to maybe scale out or not sure if they want to take it as a career path going forward? They're kind of just doing the odd Saturday class because they feel like they might have to. Talking about what you spoke about there, what would you say to someone in that sort of position?
Well, firstly, I'd say if you're doing a roll-up, then you need to stop doing a roll-up immediately. And you need to get kids engaged for a period of time so that you can actually plan out what you want to coach that group of kids. And when you get the same kids coming week in, week out, they feed off their own energy. And it starts to build from that. And you can implement things like buddy days where, the existing kids bring other friends that haven't been before. And you can start to kind of build on that. But you can't do that if you're doing a roll-up. A roll-up is just a complete and utter waste of time. It just doesn't work. The parents might as well just take the kids to Top Golf or something, because that would probably be more fruitful. But you've got to think of what it is that the kids are going to learn over a period of time. So if you have a 10-week term time program, map out exactly what it is you want to coach the kids over that period of time, what topics you want to cover, mix in some opportunities to play, mix in some skills testing, mix in opportunities for them to bring their friends, and all of a sudden you have a little recipe which can create some growth and a foothold in that kind of market space. And of course, look, what isn't great about charging parents at the start of term for the duration of that term, however much it is. If it's 50, if you're going to charge 50 quid, let's say, for the term, you get 20 kids involved in that. You've got a nice bit of pocket money there and something you can use that money for to invest over that 10-week period. All right. Likelihood is it's going to be more than 50 quid for the term, but it's you're basically guaranteeing some income over a 3-month period rather than waiting for the weather or waiting for the fact that there might be an England football match on, or Wimbledon might be on, or the F1 might be on at Silverstone, so some kids are going to be away. You have to understand that people are, very busy, and they lead different social lives now. So we have to adapt to that. So one of my policies right now in terms of my junior classes, because I teach in age groups, so 4 to 6 year olds, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, we have advanced groups and elite groups. But I try to have one class on a weekend and one class during the week. And if they can't make either one of those, then I might recommend them to come to a different session, different group session, or I'll offer them a one-to-one session. But I don't want the kids to miss out on any given week, so I'll do whatever I can for them to find an alternative solution. But of course, if it's a roll-up, then you're leaving that entire choice up to the parents as to whether the kids show up or not. And that's detrimental to what you're trying to do. So, you've got to plan it out and make a business case for this.
So that's interesting. We do, talking of roll-ups, we do one roll-up on a Sunday. It's the only roll-up class we do out of maybe 15 classes. But it's our lead, it really is our lead gen. So as soon as they've been to a school, we kind of bring them in that way.
Great idea. And that's a different concept, though. That's a different concept. And that roll-up should be free of charge. Because it's still entry level. So it's a bit like my open days, the junior open days, where we don't charge for it. We even give the kids ice cream, which tantamount to bribery, right? It's even got a flake in it. So, it's an opportunity for you to sell the concept, to sell the vision to the parents and to the kids. You want to talk to the parents. I always talk to the parents. They're the ones making the decisions. The kids will love it because they're hanging out, whacking a golf ball with a stick. Right. So, and they'll probably be with a friend. So they'll have a great time. But the parents make the decisions, and the parents are the taxi drivers. The parents have the money. So you've got to sell it to the parents. So having something like you've just described every week is very valuable. But just to have a roll up every Saturday at 10 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess, which might be more typical, is just not the way to run a junior program. No, it's not going to pay the bills.
No, you're absolutely right. You need some structure. You need to know what you're bringing in. I mean, do you get another question before we kind of finish up? Do you feel like with junior golf that I always hear this stuff about ISO seasonal, you make more money in the summer. We tend to we make a tiny bit more money in the summer. We make pretty much consistent money throughout.
Yeah.
If you do it properly.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, for sure. I used to, when I charged term time, I used to love the fact that we would get money in December and January. They'd be renewing, but now I do a subscription, so everybody's paying monthly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's consistent income. But that was always good, because the one-to-one stuff was always challenging when the weather was pretty bad, and the junior stuff was a real platform and a foundation. So even if you were teaching, 10-15% less than you would in the summer, you still had consistent income, which is very, very important nowadays when we have bills to pay, especially probably given the fact that our bills go up in the winter, right? So, a lot of young guys, they might not be great with budgeting or saving or can't save. It's like, well, this is great if I can if I can guarantee some income throughout the course of the winter months, then yeah, I'm in a good place.
Absolutely right. You're bang on there. Right, before I let you go in the next 5 minutes or so, you've already answered. I think I've already answered my next question, but in what you've just said about you starting again. But if you were gonna encourage someone to start their journey, what would you say to them as a sounding board? Would you say to them about the taster days that you're running and launch it off the back of one of them or several of them?
You have to find a platform to sell what you can do, right? So what can I do? What are my skills as a coach? And of course, there has to be motivation to want to coach kids. By the way, if you want to become a tour coach, find the kids, because the relationship you build with the kids will lead to them loving the sport to the point where these kids become really good at it. And if you're tuned into that journey, then you stand every chance of being their coach for a long time. And that gets you into the tour coach kind of world, which I know is 70% of what people sign up for. They want to be that tour coach, but you're just not going to go and pick a tour player out. You're just not going to do that. You have to start from scratch and build up to it. So I think it's interesting, right? So you've got to sell yourself, sell your program, sell what you're capable of doing for the kids, sell the vision to the parents, and whatever means that is, then do it. Don't just be one dimensional. Look at multiple ways to basically sell the future for the kids. It's all about projecting that journey that the kids will go on. You know, whether we're talking about athletic ability or life skills or social development, whatever it could be, right? The whole journey, that whole entity is something that you can sell to the parents. And if I hear that and that coach is using the right language for my kids, I'm on board fully. I'm signed up. So, you know, you've got to build out your program, understand what it does for the kids and sell it.
Just one last thing. Did you said at the start that your coaching back in, I think you said 96 when you started doing it again was limited. I
No,
think a lot
no,
of
I
people,
said it was horrendous. It was horrific. The technical side was awful.
but
I have no question.
again,
I have no qualms about that. You learn, right? You learn
100%.
about the technical side and how people swing the club, and oh yeah, it's painful. But
But people shouldn't worry, should they? Junior coaches
no,
shouldn't worry about that at the start, should they?
no,
Just need to be
not at all.
enthusiastic in engaging with the
Here's
kids, and you'll learn as you go along.
here's one thing, right? If you're just getting into the PGA, then I'm assuming you can hit a golf ball straight. I could give you 10, 12 hours of a program that teaches just aiming the club face. I could provide that for you. That's a snippet. That's what I call a mini skill. Just aiming the club face at address. Forget about where the club face is pointing at impact. Right. I could the program, you've got to build it out into the kids learning these mini skills. So the topic for today is learning about aiming the club face at address. So how many parts of the game do we have? Well, let's start. You know, you've got putting, chipping, pitching, irons, fairway woods, drivers, got bunkers, you've got knockdown shots. Perhaps that's a little bit more advanced, but you've at least got 6 or 7 mediums through which you can teach how to aim the club face. That means that within those topics, you can play a multitude of different games and activities and create different experiences where these kids realize how important it is to get the club face pointing in the right direction at the very start of the swing. So it's like your golf session for a child shouldn't be teaching them how to putt. It should be teaching them how to aim whilst using a putter, or it should be teaching them how to control how far they hit it with a putter, or teaching them how to swing in the right direction with a putter. And there are so many games and activities you can create just with that one mini skill. And when we also understand how people learn, right, you've got skills acquisition, which is generally purported to have 3 sections. You've got cognitive, associative, and autonomous, right? So we miss out as coaches too many times the cognitive phase. So do the kids truly understand the reasons behind why you're trying to teach them something? Do they? Have you created that experience where they suddenly realize, oh my goodness, I don't know how to aim because I keep missing the hole, I keep missing the target? Have you created that experience for them to realize that? Because once you do create that, all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, I need to know how to do this. So I'll either figure it out or I'll ask a question and get some help. And as soon as a kid asks a question, that for me is like the sweet spot of coaching, because when the kid asks a question, you can respond to that question in that kid's language, and you know that that kid wants to know the answer to that question. So you know that what you say is absolute gold. It's going to go in one ear and it's going to stay inside. So that cognitive level of understanding is really important. The associative side is where they're able to demonstrate that they can implement that knowledge on a practical level. Now, that could take weeks, it could take months. Don't be impatient. This is why you can't teach a kid how to putt in an hour, right? This is why you've got to focus on one mini skill. And then, of course, you know, when the kids have been with you for 6 or 7 years, you might start to begin to think that they could do it all by themselves. They could practice autonomously, implementing the knowledge and practicing the right way, the way that you've taught and covered over the years. So, you know, junior coaching is not, it's not a 60-minute roll up on a Saturday in July. It's basically, you know, the potential of 8, 9, 10 years. And, you know, if you build a proper business case, there you have a career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure that'll be majorly beneficial to some people that are potentially on
We're just,
sort of
but
looking at
we're
doing
just
it.
touching the surface. We're just
Yeah,
touching the surface. It goes so much deeper than that. And it's also, we forget as coaches that coaching kids is so much fun.
absolutely.
I, I posted a little video of some 5-year-olds